What do brilliant diamonds have in common with the elaborate plan that became one of the most infamous heists in history? On February 15, 2003, something incredible happened in Antwerp. A gang of skilled professionals managed to bypass the most secure security system and made off with treasures worth over $100 million. But who are these ingenious criminals? Why did they choose a life of crime when they had every opportunity for success in the legal world? And where are the stolen jewels now? The answers to these questions might just shock you. Imagine the most secure commercial building on the planet. On the -2 floor lies a stash of diamonds worth hundreds of millions of dollars. But what if you decided to pull off a daring robbery? You'd be surrounded by 60 cameras, all watching your every move, while police are stationed at every turn. Access to the area is blocked by guards, and inside, high-tech security systems are relentlessly protecting the jewels. The vault door is 12 inches thick and expertly locked. Inside, there's a sophisticated alarm system equipped with light, motion, vibration, and heat sensors. Even if you somehow made it past all these barriers to reach the heart of the treasure, that would only be the beginning. You'd then need to leave the building, the city, and perhaps the country without leaving a trace. Yet, even theoretically, this seems nearly impossible. However, 18 years ago, a 50-year-old Italian man and his accomplices managed to accomplish this very feat. He executed what later became renowned as the heist of the century, stealing diamonds worth over $100 million using surprisingly simple items: a mop, a piece of foam, and some hairspray. In this video, we'll dive into the riveting story of the largest diamond theft in history. How did the criminals manage to outsmart the security system of one of the world's most fortified vaults, located on one of the most vigilant streets in the safest city? Who are these masterminds and what became of them afterward? The events unfold in the small Belgian city of Antwerp on February 17, 2003. It's Monday morning, 7:30 a.m. Detective Patrick Pacey is heading to work when he receives an urgent call from the police. An inspector informs him that a theft has been reported at the Antwerp Diamond Center. Pacey and his partner quickly head to the scene, arriving half an hour later to find that something is deeply amiss. Normally, the area is quiet at this time, but now the streets are filled with frightened and confused people. Some are crying, others are in a panic. As the detectives enter the building, a call comes in to the security firm responsible for the vault's safety. The operator answering the call assures the caller that everything is under control. The alarms hadn't gone off and the vault is protected. But here's the paradox. At the very moment the operator reassures the caller, the detective is standing amidst the chaos. A scene of disorder where diamonds and gold bars are strewn across the floor. As he carefully examines the crime scene, the detective realizes he is witnessing the largest diamond heist in history. Stolen valuables valued at over $100 million. The thieves managed to accomplish the unimaginable. This vault, initially considered impregnable, has become the site of a true criminal sensation. To fully grasp the magnitude of this heist, let's take a step back in time. Not too far, just a little rewind. Let's pause in the 16th century in Antwerp, where the tradition of cutting and polishing diamonds began. Originally, these stones emerging from the earth were not particularly attractive. However, over 500 years ago, Antwerp's craftsmen started using special tools, diamond dust, and olive oil to transform these rough stones into the brilliant symmetrical diamonds we know today. Thus, Antwerp became the diamond capital of the world, surpassing New York, London, and even Dubai. This small Belgian city accounted for a staggering 80% of all the raw diamonds in circulation. The gem trade here is a commonplace affair. In the 1990s, the world's first specialized diamond squad of police was even formed, focusing on crimes related to precious gems. One of the most sensational cases involved the arrest of a smuggler known as Mr. 3,000 Carats, who was caught trying to transport a 3,000-carat diamond concealed in his rectum. For those who don't know, 3,000 carats is over half a kilogram, roughly the size of a tennis ball. Returning to Antwerp, the diamond trade is concentrated in the so-called Diamond District, a narrow space consisting of 3 small streets filled with offices, shops, and workshops. Every day, gem traders from around the world, Indians, Jews, Chinese, and Africans pass through here, many carrying briefcases containing diamonds worth tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars. The thought of seizing one of those briefcases and running away never crossed anyone's mind. it would have been completely futile. The level of security in this area was staggering, remaining so well into the 2000s. Access was restricted, checkpoint barriers only allowing verified vehicles. Others could only move around on foot. 60 surveillance cameras monitored those 3 small streets, with police keeping a close watch. Every action was recorded on video at the entrances, and the area was patrolled by law enforcement during working hours. In this tightly guarded place stood the Antwerp Diamond Center. Anyone intending to enter the building was required to scan their badge and go through security checks. Slipping inside unnoticed was nearly impossible. Inside the building there was no shortage of surveillance cameras. The vault, its most valuable asset, was located 2 floors below ground level. A massive iron door, 30 centimeters thick and weighing 3 tons, blocked the entrance to a small square room. This room contained hundreds of private safe deposit boxes, where tenants stored their priceless treasures, amounting to hundreds of millions of dollars. Only those with the appropriate box could access this sanctuary of jewels. The vault door was opened by the security guards in 2 stages, a 4-digit code and a physical key, which was accessible only to the guards. Inside the vault, there were no surveillance cameras to preserve client privacy, but the security system was fully deployed. Motion sensors and thermal detectors monitored every rustle, reacting to the slightest temperature changes. No uninvited guest could go unnoticed. A seismic detector could even sense the vibrations of a drill. One wrong move, and the alarm would trigger, drawing attention across all of Antwerp. Light detectors picked up even the faintest sources of light penetrating the darkness, while nearby magnetic locks activated only when the door was securely closed. If anyone dared to disrupt the magnetic contact outside of operational hours, the security company would immediately receive a signal, and the police would arrive within minutes. Overall, robbing this place seemed utterly impossible. However, everything changed on February 17, 2003. Stunned detectives stood in the desolate vault, and after a thorough examination of the crime scene, the police had no leads. No one knew how the thieves managed to gain entry, and no one understood how they escaped from the building. It was a perfect crime executed by a criminal genius. The story of the heist of the century began a few years earlier. In 2000, Leonardo Notarbartolo arrived in Antwerp. He was just over 50, an attractive, sociable, slightly overweight Italian. Renting a small apartment in the city center with a compact kitchen and a narrow bed, Leonardo, hailing from Turin, quickly settled in. He was a jeweler, and Antwerp was bursting with opportunities for such a business. His rented office in the Antwerp Diamond Center became his second home, where he secretly studied the entire security system of the building. Every brief conversation with the guards, every act of kindness, everything was aimed at gathering the details he so desperately needed. The most important bonus was that he gained access to the lower level. One of the vault's boxes belonged to him. For 2 years, Leonardo split his time between Belgium and his home in Italy, where his family and grandchildren awaited him. Upon returning home, he meticulously analyzed the data he had gathered with his team. Each member of his group was a true master of their craft. One knew all the secrets of lockpicking, another was a virtuoso at key duplication, and a third expertly disabled alarms. They weren't merely drafting a heist plan on paper. They created an exact replica of the vault where they practiced every step of their scheme. The hiding place where they trained was never discovered by the police. Otherwise, executing the operation swiftly and flawlessly would have been impossible. The day before the robbery, Notarbartolo visited the original location, claiming he needed to retrieve something from the safe. At that time, he discreetly sprayed hairspray on the motion detectors. The hairspray insulated their function, but was completely invisible to the naked eye. The security guard, accustomed to the Italian's visits, didn't even glance at the cameras. After all, he often comes by. The preparation took a full 2 years, and finally, the operation was scheduled for the night of February 15, 2003. At that time, a major international tennis tournament was taking place in Antwerp, the main prize of which was a luxurious trophy in the form of a diamond-studded racket. It was also the weekend immediately after Valentine's Day. There were bound to be plenty of valuables in the vault. Everything was going according to plan, and Leonardo's team was set to carry out the boldest heist in history.
And so, the night of the heist arrived. The clock showed just past midnight. The accomplices drove up to the Diamond District, stopping on a neighboring street near a police post that blocked access to the area. This street was not directly part of the Diamond District, and was not monitored by cameras. allowing several individuals with bags to walk calmly past the officers and head toward the Antwerp Diamond Center's garage. At that time, Notarbartolo is sitting in the car, listening to the police conversations so that he can warn his associates if necessary. The open garage provided an entrance to the building, bypassing the main entrances where personal passes were required. The thieves picked the lock and descended the stairs to the lower floor, where the vault was located. In front of them stood the massive door weighing 3 tons, which needed to be breached in complete darkness. The light detector was mounted on the ceiling inside the vault. It was precisely for such circumstances that a replica of the room had been created for the team to practice all their actions. There could be no mistakes. On the door was a coded lock consisting of 4 digits. One of the accomplices entered the combination. How did they find out the code? When studying the security system, Notarbartolo couldn't take notes on a piece of paper, so he found another way. He managed to install a camera in the handle. As a result, all conversations were recorded on video, including the employees entering the secret combination for the safe. In their foolishness, they didn't change the passwords for the storage room, a missed opportunity, and so the secret code was entered. Now they faced the final lock, which opened with a physical key. Leonardo had noted that before opening the door, the guard always entered a utility room adjacent to the vault. It was there that the thieves found the necessary key and unlocked the door. Although luck played a role, the team included a lock-picking expert ready to tackle the lock if the key were unavailable. In front of them lay the final barrier, 2 magnets. When the door is opened, they get separated and the alarm goes off. But the accomplices had prepared in advance. They carefully unscrewed the magnets without disturbing the magnetic field and opened the door, stepping into the vault. At that moment, they heard the long-awaited silence. No alarms went off. The first thing they did was to cover the light sensor on the ceiling with duct tape, allowing them to turn on their flashlights. All the previous actions had been conducted in total darkness. But what about the other sensors? Why hadn't they triggered? As mentioned earlier, days before the heist, Leonardo had brought hairspray and coated the heat and motion detectors to temporarily disable them. Not knowing how long this would last, the thieves prepared a mop with a piece of foam attached to it and placed it in front of the sensors. This provided additional protection against triggering alarms. Now, everything else was a matter of technique. The thieves opened the safes and placed the valuables into their bags. After several hours of work, having emptied more than half of the safes, they completed their operation. And why did they take only half? The reason was simple. They couldn't fit more. They arrived on foot and had to leave the crime scene just as they came. The thieves even left some of their tools behind. When faced with a choice between an extra piece of gold and a jigsaw, the choice was obvious. Gathering their bags, the accomplices were ready to leave the vault. But first, they needed to solve one more problem. As you know, the Diamond Center had round-the-clock surveillance cameras. Notarbartolo had prepared in advance and found out that no one monitored the footage in real time during the night. On weekends, the cameras simply recorded video, and security guards only reviewed the tapes on Mondays. All the accomplices had to do was retrieve the recordings. After taking the video footage, they exited the building the same way they had come in. At this point, the group began to split up. Some stayed at the base, while others got into a car and dispersed in different directions. They agreed to meet in Italy a few days later to discuss their next steps. Just over a day after the heist, detectives realized they were at a dead end. No traces, clues, or witnesses. Clearly, an operation like this could only have been carried out by true criminal geniuses. The individuals who pulled off the heist at the Antwerp Diamond Center were members of the so-called Turin School, an organization of experienced thieves specializing in jewel thefts. This group operated like a closed club, with the most important rule being to tell no one about its existence. The thieves employed clever methods of stealing, utilizing knowledge of engineering, physics, and other sciences. Each of their operations was meticulously planned, with every possible detail considered. The crime could have been deemed brilliant, and we might never have learned how it was executed if it weren't for one rather foolish mistake. Notarbartolo had a friend, Pietro Tavano, who had been working alongside him for 30 years. In a hurry to leave Antwerp, they had a quick bite with the other accomplices at Leonardo's apartment, enjoying sandwiches with salami. After veering off the highway, they discovered a small forest where they planned to burn all the evidence, documents, bags, and plastic. Notarbartolo took his share to the stream and ended up burning it there. Meanwhile, Tavano was already on edge, and in that moment he simply scattered all the evidence. He was having a panic attack. The gang leader thought that the police wouldn't search this area since they were far out of town, so the whole group just left. Despite all their careful planning, the thieves had not considered that hastily discarded trash could lead to their exposure. Everything would have been fine if that little grove hadn't belonged to Auguste van Camp. He was the classic cantankerous landowner who was infuriated by the constant littering in his forest. This time was no exception. Auguste repeatedly called the police to complain, but they remained inactive. This time was no different. On February 17th, while walking through the woods, Mr. Van Camp came across a pile of trash and immediately called the police. When he said that there was money and jewelry in the trash, the police quickly sent a team to the site. For several days, the police examined the found trash. In addition to the Antwerp Diamond Center documents and cash from various countries, they found small green stones, a receipt from the store where the salami was bought. There was also an invoice in Leonardo's name and a sandwich, where DNA and traces of DNA from unidentified people would later be found. Also, among the litter was an interesting document with the details of a company that rented an office in the Diamond Center. This company belonged to Leonardo Nattar Bartolo. Police also determined that Bartolos's storage unit was not broken into during the robbery. How did his document end up among the discarded trash? Among the discarded items, the police also found boxes for cassettes that might have contained recordings from the surveillance cameras, but the boxes themselves were empty. Detectives logically deduced that the recordings might have been discarded somewhere nearby. After traversing nearly 30 kilometers of forest, the police found several cassette tapes. A group of over a dozen detectives gathered in a room. They inserted one of the tapes into a player, eagerly awaiting the appearance of the thieves' faces on the screen. However, moments later, instead of that, they saw an adult film. It turns out the tapes they found do not belong to the missing recordings from the boxes. Instead, they are simply other videos that someone had thrown away. Despite this setback, the clue related to the documents in the name of Leonardo Notarbartolo yielded results. The police search his vacant office and then head to his apartment. There, they find small green stones on the carpet. Through the analysis of the evidence discovered in the trash, the police managed to apprehend 4 individuals, including Leonardo Notarbartolo himself. During interrogations, none of the suspects speaks a word. As a result of the trial, Leonardo Notarbartolo is sentenced to 10 years in prison, while his accomplices receive shorter sentences. He is released on parole in 2009, 6 years after the heist. At that time, he gives his only interview, in which he shares his life story. He recalls committing his first theft at the age of 6. His mother gave him money to buy milk, and he took the opportunity to rob the milkman while he slept. Despite being punished by his parents, Leonardo continued his criminal career. In elementary school, he stole money from his teacher's bags, and as a teenager, he switched to car theft. By the age of 30, Leonardo Notarbartolo began assembling a team of unique professionals, each of whom excelled in various skills, from lockpicking to alarm system bypassing. The heist at the Antwerp Diamond Center became a true masterpiece for this team. Detective Patrick Pace still wonders why such smart and talented individuals chose a life of crime. This is not the only question that remains unanswered nearly 20 years after the heist. It is unclear who was the mastermind behind the operation and who funded it all. The preparation, creating a duplicate of the vault, and compensating the accomplices, all of this required significant financial resources. According to unconfirmed reports, Leonardo Notarbartolo's brother might have been an important member of the Sicilian mafia. It is believed that he initiated the operation, covered the expenses, and ultimately received the bulk of the profits. Although this is merely a hypothesis, the whereabouts of the other participants in the heist also remain unclear. DNA from other individuals was found on the evidence, and the detectives believe about 10 people were involved in the operation, while only 4 have been apprehended. However, the most pressing question that haunts everyone is, where is the money? Preliminary estimates suggest that the thieves made off with diamonds and other valuables worth over $100 million. No one knows the exact amount, as many jewel owners simply did not report their losses to the police. The fact is that most diamond transactions still occur in the shadows. Such is the nature of this market. Tracking the path of specific stones and identifying them is virtually impossible. It is highly likely that the stolen items were sold either by the participants of the heist themselves or their backers. The irony is that the stolen diamonds could have re-entered circulation and returned to the market. Thank you for watching until the end. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon, and we'll see you in the next video.